Mr. Maguire, how are you doing today?
Good morning. How are you?
Good. You've got 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. I'm here to speak on the proposed options in terms of contracting out that are before the committee. And I'm essentially going to make 4 points. The first point is that we're all affected by preventative maintenance. Our members that deliver public services to Toronto communities are affected by preventative maintenance, and the public who receive those services, who value and depend on those services, rely on preventative maintenance of the city's vehicles. Second is that it's currently the official policy of City of Toronto Council that there will be a job quality assessment tool created, essentially to look at what good jobs look like. What are the components of a good job as the city looks at whether it's going to sometimes contract out work to ensure that it doesn't inadvertently turn good jobs into bad jobs, making poverty and income inequality worse in Toronto communities. As the city looks at its issues in terms of potentially contracting out, to leave that work undone, I think is a mistake. To move forward on contracting out initiatives without filling in that piece, that job isn't done yet, looking at what the quality job assessment tool looks like as the city reviews contracting it. Here at City Hall and elsewhere, we can debate issues of contracting out, and we necessarily take positions in defense of public services, and others will take positions that sometimes it saves money or for whatever reason of contracting out, but we shouldn't be really having those debates without filling in this hole to make sure that the job quality assessment tool is done first. Third point is that there have been issues with contracting out of another area of fleet services, and that's the parts provision. Fleet Services had considerable problems with the previous contracting out, especially parts and inventory management, which is contracted out to NAPA Auto Parts. The external review completed by Mercury Associates, as well as past reports from the Auditor General, have pointed to major problems with that contract. In fact, the division itself has noted that operational savings gained by contracting out in this area have been offset by delayed turnaround times. That costs money and interferes with the ability of the city to deliver services to Toronto's communities. So the city ought to look at these issues as it's deciding whether to contract in another area concerning preventative maintenance. To rush in without looking at these issues would appear to be ideological, and I don't think that's the direction that we want to be going in. Further subpoint of this, in terms of the issues with this contracting out, a Toronto Star article in October of 2014, an investigation by the Star showed that there were serious problems with parts used by NAPA and their impact on street sweepers and airborne particulates. We have to ensure not only the economical and political questions looked at, but also the public health issues associated with decisions around contracting out. And we have to look at those issues before moving headlong into another possibility of contracting out. In sum, we are here to suggest that this matter should be referred back to ensure that these areas are looked at, and that there's actually a thoughtful approach in making this decision around a very important area of public services in the city. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Maguire. Questions of the Deputant? Councillor Davis.
There is in Appendix 1, which is this, or A, review of maintenance service delivery options, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Certainly not many tangible numbers here, but it mentions the parts contract, and it said that there needed to, here it is. Fleet would move forward with new parts supplier RFP as planned if option 1 were selected. So has there been an RFP issued? Or there would be a new RFP. So you're saying NAPA won a contract for parts delivery?
Yeah, I believe that's in process. I don't know the exact status of it. I believe it's in process. I don't know if it's been issued, if there were complications around that RFP.
But the one you spoke about is existing,
It's existing, yes.
and you said there are problems with
There are problems. Mercury consultant has indicated there are problems, and again, the city itself in a report indicates that there have been delays in the provisions of parts with that contract.
So that there would have to be another contract anyway, would there not, even if it was for specialized?
Yes, and I think that there's an RFP in the process of being issued. And I think to kind of reword my comment, there has to be serious consideration given to continuing in-house delivery of services and where the city has already contracted out. And I think the council recently adopted a motion that looks at where the city has not achieved the goals it intended to achieve. They should look seriously at contracting in. To do otherwise, from our perspective, is ideological.
So, and I'll have the same questions of staff, but reading this report, it sounds as though we've let this fleet services division sort of fall apart. We don't have enough staff. We don't have sufficient capacity in our garages. And so we're just going to say, we won't fix the problems, we'll just contract them out. Is that your take on this?
Our take is that there have been concerns that we've raised in the past about the potential of contracting out to NAPA. The purpose of the public servants who provided this contract, or who did this work, is to evaluate price and quality of parts and determine in the public interest what are the parts to be provided. That's now provided by a private contractor. We're not saying all private contracts bad, but in this instance there have been problems that need to be addressed. Address those issues and look at the possibility of continuing in-house service delivery on the preventative maintenance as an option to be seriously considered rather than rushing into contracting out.
Okay, so option one should be looked at much more closely, because it
Yes.
certainly doesn't tell me enough about what the real issues are here. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Other questions of the deputant? Councillor McConnell.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Maguire. By the way, I entirely get the good jobs question, and it's a very important question that we raise within the poverty reduction strategy. In terms of preventative maintenance, when I read the report, it indicated that the preventative maintenance of our vehicles was being delayed. And I wondered if you, from your perspective, would address what the solutions are, from your perspective, of improving those preventative maintenance
We would be happy to sit down and discuss what some of those solutions might be. I don't have them on top of mind at the moment, but we're always happy to discuss how we improve services and sit down with the union as partners in figuring out solutions.
What is the role of, the fire that happened in the garage and the shutdown of that garage? Does that weigh in on this discussion in your view?
I'm not familiar with this issue.
I'll ask one of the other men.
Thank you.
Other questions of the deputant? Councillor McConnell, or sorry, Councillor Nunziata.
Yeah,
My apologies.
Question, you mentioned when you started your deputation is for us not to rush it, right?
Correct.
But as you're aware, we've been working on this for 3 years. It's been at this committee a few times, and there's been direction from committee and council, so it's not rushing. We've been discussing it, and staff have been working on it for 3 years, correct?
It's being looked at, but if there are problems that aren't being addressed and given due consideration, then I think that's rushing it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of the deputant? No? Okay, thank you, Mr. Maguire.
Thank you for your time.